The language of deceit. Notes and extracts. Meaning and purpose. Aesthetics matter. Simple is beautiful. Form and structure combine to entrance us. As with so many things in life, this is not unnecessary, yet it is an entanglement. Whether we know it or not, we all seek something beautiful. Having only 26 letters makes the English language incredibly efficient, yet disguises the fact that through phonetics, the real nature of our verbal communication is much more varied and complex. Originally, there were more letters, but for the case of simplicity, they were simply eliminated by an invisible authority and erased from history forever. For more details on this, we could perhaps begin with societies and associations of the great Francis Bacon. But that is for another time. The enlightened still guide us from the shadows. For those interested in specifics, English has 44 sounds or utterances that when combined create our language. Within the alphabet there are 20.5 consonants and 5.5 vowels. The half comes from the dependent position of the letter Y, usually related to whether it is at or near the beginning or end of the word. It appears that the vowel system A, E, I, O and U of longer sounds was introduced into words, one within each, to reduce the pace, lengthen words, and soften the speech, introduce more round tonal sounds as opposed to repetitive stabs. Fast dialogue can be unintelligible and an even more arduous task to interpret or master. There is a rhythm and rhyme and stress and inflection to English that is unlike any other language. Perhaps that is why it fits seamlessly into the artistic endeavours of playwrights, poets, public speakers, musicians, and singers. And although it is essentially incomplete, or basically unfinished in its grammatical structure, and a randomized mess in modal expression, it has well served the purpose of its creation, to create a world language that tied together the loose ends of society that escaped the clutches of other systems. As money has become God and business has become religion, so language has become thought. The shape of the letters and numbers also matter and have an esoteric value. The original coded form of the English lettering system was called the Desdemona alphabet. The letters represented more than sounds. They were symbols and signs and logos. They represented the sun and the moon and the stars, and man and woman, and the agenda and the destiny. There is so much more to this, but often explanations can't replace research. There are words within words, as there are worlds within worlds. Without getting too off-worldly, We have been given our language, told our history, fed our culture, delivered our religion, and led like blind men to believe that all there is all that we have been told that there is. We are programmed to the extreme that information which is not taught is hard or impossible for most people to imagine. Imagination is therefore governed by a knowledge of the seemingly probable and incomprehensibly improbable. Yet the impossible is always impossible until it's done. It is also often pointless. This is the danger inherent in the unrestrained mind, with unrestricted thought and with boundless opportunities to imagine. That is, if we are not thinking about the tasks that we have been allocated, or of the collectibles we seek in order to dissipate the pain of our everyday suffering. They shop until they drop, or are somehow stopped. As consumers, our time is consumed with consumption. It is always prudent to reconsider what we know, to re-examine our motivation, to refix our goals so that they realign with the changing world around us. There may be nothing new under the sun, but there is still a lot to learn. With the hope, of course, that learning leads to earning. Manipulations readily apply to ourselves and our daily experiences. They apply to opportunity and to possibility and probability. Remember, all it takes is to be told that something is so for it to be believed that it cannot be not so. The abdication of individual responsibility regarding understanding that there are more perspectives and that the problem might just not be the problem is the most common cause of the clash and conflict in civilizations. Words are the domain of the wordsmith, the chains and the liberation, the cause of the effect, the warning and the warring. They are the depth to which we sink and the height to which we have risen. Let us examine a few words as examples. Educate, the verb. Mid-15th century, meaning bring up children or train, to rear, to bring out or lead forth. Note, it should mean allow to grow rather than shape or form. School, the noun, a group of fish circa 1400, related to fish or other animals, cognate with a band or a troop. Note, imagine the directed movement of a large group of small fish. Class, the noun, Latin classis, class, division, army, fleet, especially any one of the 6 orders into which Servius Tullius divided the Roman people for the purpose of taxation. Traditionally, originally, from the people of Rome under arms. See also the caste system. Note, a system through which one does not extend or expand beyond. Pedagogue, the noun, taken from Latin, meaning slave who escorts boys to school and generally supervises them. Later, a teacher. Also meaning to lead. Hostile implications in the word are at least from the time of the 1650s. Note, the word means a punisher of slaves who is themselves also a kind of slave. Profess, the verb. Early 14th century, to take a vow in a religious order. To speak, to confess, to acknowledge, to declare openly, also to pretend. Note, to profess is in no way connected with what is or what is to be, but is related to what is considered to be. Staff, the noun. Old English for a walking stick, a strong pole used for carrying, a rod used as a weapon, also meaning an idol, or in Old Church Slavonic, a pillar. Note, a tool with which to lead and corral and admonish. Seminary, the noun. Mid-15th century. A plot where plants are raised from seeds. A breeding ground. Also a school for training priests, or later any school, especially academies for young ladies. Note, a place where the seeds of life are to be planted. And finally, curriculum, the noun. A course, especially a fixed course of study at a college, university, or other school. 1824, transferred from classical Latin. Curriculum meaning a running, a course, or a career, related also to chariots and chariot racing. Note, a circular track where you always end up right back where you started. Languages are full of idle curiosities and slants. Sometimes a word is just a word, nothing more and nothing less. Looking carefully but intently, we can see too much as often as we see too little. Sometimes we only ever find what we are looking for, though what we are actually looking for is not at all what we have told ourselves. And yes, the greatest lie is actually to ourselves. Where we give permission, much is taken from us and never returned. And so our power lies in not giving away those things which we need to keep. A word is not good or bad. That faculty is reserved for people who have a choice which path in life they wish to take. Speech cannot be hateful any more than a loaf of bread can be angry. You may feel hurt, but then it is your job to manage your feelings, just as it is your job to manage your actions. But the few, knowing they are powerless, will always seek to control the many. Banning words is no different from banning thoughts. It's mind manipulation. And down throughout history, the suppression of the human consciousness has always been the ultimate tyranny. Political correctness itself is just the attempt to assign human attributes to unwelcome agendas so that the status quo may be more easily maintained. We have a weaponized language, and so a weaponized culture. We have a codified system wherein a variety of interpretations are possible. We have to realize that while we understand, we also stand under. The fool remains foolish. The wise must also consider that they may be fools. Nothing given comes without a price. The cost is never lost. Free always comes with a hidden fee. This is the confusion that surrounds us, the contradictions, the fact that selection is also rejection, the fact that we have to live in the shadow of our own ignorance, the fact that we have eyes, but so often we do not see. The violence of our world is simply an inability to healthily process reality. It ought to be more well understood that the value in education returns to society only when we understand that the words we use are able to diffuse rather than disseminate conflicts. That progress is achieved by peaceful means only. Where this fails, we can only assume that our enemies have usurped control of the programs of study and their outcomes. To see the full picture, it requires an ability to stitch together the seen and unseen elements. The nature of the beast. It requires the ability to distance ourselves from a society of obtuse punishments and external rewards. This is now a duty. To see how the quest for approval allows us to be manipulated and as a result disconnected from reality. To see clearly that force is always equal to failure. There is always much to learn, further to go, and more that we can be. The language of deceit. Notes and extracts.